I'm not gonna lie, I just did all the numbers. I thought this was like a 75, maybe 87, $82,000 lesson. I did the numbers. It's over 100K. Let's talk about it. All right. So let's start in the beginning. How I got here. How did I end up here? Number one, I used to be the kid who I always dreamed about my first home, right? I always dreamed about owning property, having a place to call my own. I was a person, like, I was the kid who loved HGTV. I loved watching Property Virgins with Egypt. I loved watching House Hunters, um, all versions of it. And so I was very into the idea of home ownership. I knew exactly how I wanted the walkway for my first house to be, like a little path to the front door. I knew I wanted a colorful front door. I had this concrete vision for myself and my life as to how I was going to get this home. And that was a goal of mine, and I was determined for this. All right, so this is how it started out. I went to school, got my degree, decided to go back to school and get my master's degree in public health with a focus which was in epidemiology, because to me that's very interesting. So that's what I went to school for. When I graduated from school, my very first job that I got, I was working as a financial analyst in a consulting firm, and it was the worst job ever. The reason that this job was so horrible is because it had billable hours, which made it a very competitive environment. Like, people were not happy at that job. And I know people were not happy at that job. I mean, first you could just feel the atmosphere that people were not happy at that job. Everybody was miserable. It seemed miserable in their cubicles. I mean, I'm sure some people liked it. I was not one of them. The atmosphere was so dreary and drab that was actually what got me on my pathway to financial education and financial literacy. Nobody talked in that environment, okay? It wasn't like, oh, chilling at the cubicle and da 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 da. That was not the environment there. It's quite busy today. Because, like I said, it was consulting, and you had to find your clients and billable hours. So it was basically kissing ass to the higher people up there to try to be like, hey, I want to work on your project. Which, did you really want to work on that project? No, but you needed billable hours each month, or you would literally not make your billable hours for the month, and it affected your promotion. Everything was bad environment, in my opinion. But anywho, and also that was the first that was my first taste of discrimination, gender based and race based. Because when I first got that job, the salary that I was offered was $53,000, and I actually negotiated back then. I didn't know how to negotiate as I know how to negotiate then, but I remember asking specifically, "Is this a top? Is there anything I can do? This is my experience." And this man looked me in the dead face and said, "This is the salary." I needed a job. I needed money. So I accepted it, only to find out months later that my white coworker, another lady, she was thankfully we just started talking, and she's like, "Oh man, this job, I wish it paid more. The base salary is 54K." I said, 54K? And then she was like, "Yeah, can you?" And then she's like, "I can't believe, oh gosh, I forget this man's name, but let's call him Chad." She's like, "Yeah, Chad's making 55K." And I just thought it was unfair. I'm like, oh, man. So this white man was making 55K, the white woman was making 54K, and me, the black woman, was making 53K. And before you attempt to be like, what about isms? We all had the same degree. We all had the same degree. And if you're talking about experiences, I had the most experience, because while in grad school, I was working specifically for the state of Arizona in my grad project, but I digress. This is why it's important to talk about salaries, because once I saw that, I was already ready to go. But once I saw that, I was even more ready to go, because how can you be so petty over 2K? But then those 2Ks compounds, because let's say your raise is on 5% of your salary, it's going to be more than 2K in a couple of years. And then also just off the fact of, why are you paying somebody more basically based off of race and gender? Not fair. at all, because we were all suffering the same in this horrible, racist, misogynist company. Anywho, but this is the company that, because people really didn't have fun there, it was your head down in your spreadsheets, crunching numbers, very boring. But that's when I started listening to podcasts. This is when I first discovered the podcast So Money. People on there were talking about saving 10%, 15%. At that time, to me, those numbers seemed impossible. I'm like, what? People are doing what with their salaries? That's what they're doing? I didn't know this. But it was very good that I learned about that, because the following year, 2018, I left that job. Found a new job. My next job, I was getting paid $65,000. That was my base salary, and I was very ecstatic. This was the most money I've ever made. I mean, the 53K was the most money I ever made at the time, but then 65K, I just felt as though I was on top of the world. Couldn't tell me anything at all. So this was actually the time where I learned more about financial independence. I started learning about the FIRE movement because I was in my podcast bag. Like, I was listening to podcasts and I was typing on those computers, getting those numbers, crunching it as they need to. This next company I was working in the same thing, although they called us medical economics analyst, which basically meant you're crunching numbers, but you're crunching numbers within the healthcare field specifically. So this is when I started saving my 401k. Was I saving 15%? No. I started saving 3%, and then was able to increase it by the end of 2018 to 5%, which made me very proud. I was proud of myself because I was doing zero. So to go from 0 to 5% and saving money. This is also where I started saving an emergency fund. Before this, I did not understand that concept. But after having the experience of listening to podcasts and seeing what people were doing, this is when I started putting $100 per paycheck away. And I felt great about myself then, because I'm like, oh, look at me. I'm building money. I have money now. So yeah, I started. Yep, that was when I did it. Now, 2019, the year before COVID hit, this is when I actually got fired up. I started listening to even more diversified podcasts, more people in the FIRE movement. I was very focused on the goal of retiring early. Like, I used to have a blog then. I would do my monthly updates of this is how much I saved, this is how much I spent, similar to this, but in writing form, because writing was my first love. Okay, yeah, 2019 is when I got a new job. This job was making more money, but this was the second worst company I've ever worked for. This was a startup. I was the only Black person in that company. It was not a good experience at all, because what happened in 2020, yeah, a lot happened, and working there, working with those people was a horrible experience. The HR person was the CEO, was the boss's wife, which I think they were just trying to find a way to collect more money, because how did that make sense? Your husband runs the company. What am I going to tell you HR wise that people are making me uncomfortable when you lay in bed next to them and that these are all your childhood friends and da 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 da. Horrible experience. I wish everybody at that company a lifetime of stepping on Legos, a lifetime of paper cuts, just very racist, insane humans that I work with. But this was when I was making 73K, and I just felt like the richest of riches, because at the time they also had a 10% bonus based off of your base salary. So, I mean, of course I was going to do the work. I did the work. I got my bonus. So this was just when I was in my bag. At this time, I started saving $500 a month because, like I said, I had my house dream forever. And so within that year, I was able to put $6,000 in my housing fund for myself and start this journey, this path towards saving towards home ownership. So this was 2019. I saved $6,000. 2020 is a year that I had opened my Etsy store back in 2019, but in 2020 was really a year where I made I made a lot of money that year. Here are some of the reasons why. I created two shirts. One shirt I created, it had like the recipe of margaritas on it, and then it said quarantine coffee. People really loved that, and I was able to make quite a lot of money off of selling that shirt. And then I also had another shirt that was quite popular. It said, what did it say? I think it said the letters The year 2020 brought to you by the letters W, T, and F. People really love that. I made so much money off of that shirt. This is the year where I think I made my revenue went over $5,000 selling things, because before then I just had printable games on my shop, which did make me some money, but each game was like $7, so the profit wasn't really as high. But this was the year that, yeah, yep. So this year, I think out of all of the money that I had made on Etsy, I put $6,000. Did I put? No, I put $5,000 from the money I had made from Etsy, and then I was continuously saving the $500, which equates to about $6,000 for the year, plus the $5,000 that I had made on Etsy that year, to have saved $11,000 into my plus fund. 2021, people still wanted the shirts. My store was recommended more because people had bought so much, because Etsy gets a cut of whatever you make. So of course they have the incentive to put people your way. And in 2021, I was able to still sell shirts. People loved the games I had created. I think, is that when I had created? I think I either created the What is Santa Thinking game, either in 2020 or 2021. Anywho, 2021, I made the most money I've ever made from my shop. I think my revenue was over 7,000. I'll find the direct number. But the take home from that, I was able to take $6,000 this time, more money, and put it in my into my house savings fund. So that year, $6,000 from my regular savings, my $500 a month, and then $6,000 from my Etsy store, creating $12,000 and bringing me to, I think my rent egg at this point, what was it? It was like 29,000, something like that. It was over 20K. I was over the moon. Then in 2022, the Etsy store sales kind of dwindled off. People were not buying like the COVID related shirts anymore, but it was what it was. I was still able to make some money from that, but I did not take any money from that for my house fund. The money that I got in 2022, 2023, and the rest of it, I put that towards my student loans, and then I put that towards gifting. I think I had quite a few friends get married. Yeah, everybody was getting married. So I had a lot of wedding stuff to do. I had things to spend my money on. That wasn't the house. So I was just saving my regular $500 a month, $6,000 a year. I think at the end of 2022 must have been, I think it was $35,000 that I had at the end of 2022 for my house saving funds. I continued saving $500 a month for the house saving funds because, like I said, I was determined to have a house. I really wanted a house. And so I was saving money to get this house. In 2023, I was still saving, but then this was when, was it 2023? Yeah, 2023. I think that's when I had broken up with my ex and just ready to, I was living with my sister. Yeah, 2023 was 2023 was a year. Anywho, I was still saving my money, but this time I was getting more into wanting to get a house. I had toured a couple places by myself, and then I ended up getting a real estate agent who I very love. Kumoyo was great. I would highly recommend her. I'll put her information down in the bottom if you're looking for selling your home, buying a home, anything home ownership wise in Arizona. It was great working with her. She really helped me with the new build process, answered all my questions. Fantastic experience working with her specifically. Now, yes, okay. Now, so this is when I looked at a house. The moment I walked into this model home, I'm like, okay, this is my house. This is exactly what I wanted. It had the layout that I had desired, everything about it. And so I had signed with her a commitment to this home. Now I think they wanted $1,000. And I think within, I don't know, was it within 30 days or 60 days, 90 days, one of those days, I had to submit the rest of the deposit so that it could get started on building the house. And the total deposit for that was $12,500 for them to get started on the new built home. This was actually initially not part of my plan. My plan for my savings, I was going to continue savings because what I really wanted was $80,000. That was my goal. My goal was $80,000 because in my head, I was going to buy a home that was capped at 340K. And then I was going to put, stop, cars. And then I was going to put 20% down because I'm like, I'm not paying PMI. So my goal was to put 68K down for this home that was going to be capped at 340K. And then my goal was to spend around $12,000 furnishing the house. These were my best laid plans that did not occur. All my numbers are written right here. Because calculating this was an experience. It was an experience. Anywho, here we go. The total that I had to pay for the deposit for them to even get started on building this house and know that I was committed was 12,500 United States dollars. What I had to pay for closing cost was $29,226.92 that I had to bring to closing. But like I had said, I've been saving since 2019, so I did have that money put aside to be able to cover those costs. So total that I had sent to the builders, I had to write out checks for, deposit money for, was $41,726.92. And that was the beginning of my very expensive lesson. To furnish my home cost more than I thought. Delivery fees, new beds, everything was around $16,000. Getting the fridge, all of that. And I did actually have, like, this is not including the help, like one of my sisters helped me pay for a rug, one of my sisters helped me pay for my TV, so that was helpful. But the cost that I incurred was around $16,000. But I did some ridiculous things, like buy this trash can. Did I need that? No, at the time it was like a $200 trash can. Now it's $450 for this trash can. I don't know. Anywho, I think home ownership and weddings is really where people make record profits, because you're just playing off of people's emotions. And they're like, I want this, I want that. And you're going to pay for all the things that you want. Right. So it was around $16,000 for me to, for me to furnish my home. So that brings the total to, and then I had to pay for, what I had to pay for? I had to pay for, an inspector. I had to pay for home inspector before I even got in the house. So anyways, I had paid for the home inspector before moving in. I think he charged me what did he charge me? $389. So thus far, for this home, before my first mortgage payment, I had dropped almost $60,000, $58,000 on this home. Because I had closed in August, my first mortgage payment wasn't due till October. So for October, November, December, 3 months, Q4 2024, my mortgage payment was a little under $2,300. So it was $2,294.62. So for 3 months, that brought my out-of-pocket payment to $6,883.86. Yeah. And then for the year, so where are we at? We're a little bit under, I think we're around $65,000 right now. Yeah. For the entire year of 2025, my mortgage payment remained the same. It's great. $2,294.62 for 12 months. That is $27,535.44 that I had paid for this home. And then before you get into your 1 year, they do something called a 10-month check-in or whatever, where they're like, hey, are you having any problems? Go ahead and let us know now, because after that, you're responsible. We're not. It was underneath the warranty. And so what did I do? I paid again for a home inspector, a new home inspector. This time I wanted fresh eyes on the property. This man charged me $325 for this, to inspect the property, and he found things that the first inspector didn't see, or maybe things occurred in the 10 months, I would say. Whatever. I got the inspector. It was $325 out of my pocket. They fixed the issues that arose, but that was money out of my pocket. So, oh my gosh, if you include the 1 year of rent of my home ownership that I was fully responsible for, because I am a single solo lady, I did not get any help with my deposit. I mean, I wish I had with my family, but my family just didn't, their money doesn't roll like that. And so I am financially dependent myself. Me, myself, and I. Yeah. So 65,000 plus the 27,000 for all of the rent for 2025. And 1 month of 2026, before they told me that my mortgage was increasing. That brings me to $92,860.22. for this home that I had saved years and years and years for. In 2026, my mortgage increased, property taxes. Yay. All right, so comfortable enough. I'm gonna let it go. Continue. Because I don't think my phone is that great. February, March, April. 3 months of me paying my full mortgage at my new rate of $2,689.19. I don't need to look at a paper with this. I will remember this number forever. Times three is $8,067.57 in 2026. Paying. In April is when I got tenants. They moved in. They're not covering my full rent because private equity, that's the name. Private equity firms, I'm in a new build community, bought up homes in this new build community, and they are setting the rent price to whatever they want to, right? Because if I have a brand new 3-bedroom 2-bathroom home and my mortgage is almost $2,700, but they have a brand new 3-bedroom 2-bathroom homes and they're charging the rent at $2,100, $2,000, $2,200, I can't be the person charging $2,700, because why would a tenant pay $2,700 for literally the same property with the same amenities? They wouldn't. That would be unhinged. That would be wild, right? Everybody's trying to save money, especially in this economy. So I had to be competitive and charge in the vicinity of what these private equity firms are charging. So I'm charging my tenants currently $2,150. And so I'm responsible for that gap. Okay. And then I'm also responsible for paying my property management company. Every month I owe them $135 for managing my property, dealing with the tenants, all of that. Now, I'm not even including electricity. I'm not even including internet. I'm not including any of those things. Cleaning. I'm not even including the money that I spent cleaning, getting my house ready, like cleaning the carpets, cleaning the floors, cleaning the towels, getting complete cleaners. I'm just talking about how much money it cost me for home ownership so far. And so this is my, maybe should I update the title, my 100K lesson. This is my lesson to myself. Now at the time, I say diligently because I did want the house. Past tense. I wanted it, right? Past tense. But now that I am decided to move outside the US, trying to find my next new home, it financially does not make sense anymore for me to hold on to this property. And it is quite a realization to reach to, especially something that I spent so many years saving for, wanted so vividly, vibrantly. Like I had all of this idea in my head. I created my home exactly the way that I wanted it to be. It's kind of wild to come to this realization, but it's the truth of the matter. It doesn't make financial sense anymore to have this property, especially for the fact that I no longer want to live in America. Just off that sentence alone, it really doesn't make sense for me to continue owning this property and having this property. Now, of course, I have my tenants there, so everybody signed a contract. They're there until next April, but next April, I think I'm about to put the house on the market because I don't see myself returning back to the US, and it would not make sense to continue having it. So I guess I say all this to say that sometimes you save for something, sometimes you think you want something, you go through the motions of it, and then life hands you surprises, life hands you differences. You may change your vision, but it's important to be honest. It's important to do the numbers, calculations, and then come to the conclusion that makes the most sense for you. I know there will be people who have opinions and say things like equity. What about equity? What about legacy? All of those things. And those are some things I thought about as well for myself. But the reason that's make me feel more inclined, right, to make this decision, to come to this conclusion is that, well, one, I got life insurance. It was like a huge relief for me because I don't want to be the person not leaving legacy behind. I think I don't know. I think it's very sad when, see, that I wish I had, like, you know, ancestors who had was in the financial position to be able to leave me something so I did not have to pay 100K out of pocket. Okay, I wish that I could be like, my great grandmother left me this and left me that. But what I can do, I mean, I don't plan on having any kids, but I do have my nieces and nephews. I have my godchildren. I have people that I care about, that when I'm gone, I still want to be able to support. And so this is why I got my life insurance policy, so that when I do die, because we're all dying, that that money goes towards helping them with the next version of their life, whatever it may be. Money goes to them so that they can be able to have more of a start than I had. This is my legacy that I'm leaving behind. And so that gives me a little bit more of a relief, knowing that, okay, it's not just passing the house on, or passing the equity from the house on. There's still another way for me to be able to reach the goals that I wanted, which is to be able to support my so support my loved ones, the people I care about. Yeah, so that is the conclusion for myself. Oh, and another thing, I had was interacting with one of my subscribers who had left this very kind, wonderful comment, which really sparked me, because back when I was in grad school, I was teaching. I love teaching. Actually, it's one of my passions. You could tell I am a talkative person. I could talk all day. And then I don't know, maybe this is also something that I inherited from both my mom and my dad, because my mom was very friendly, very talkative person. She made friends wherever she went. And my father, most of his life, he spent as an educator as well. He was a teacher here in the U.S. He was a teacher back home, and he was a professor back home in Liberia. So maybe it's just in my genes. But anywho, and then I also was an financial educator for my sorority. I would put on 401k workshops, financial literacy workshops. I say all this to say that I will be having some financial education workshops. If this is your cup of tea, I will be putting it down below. Now, today is Saturday, July 4th. My goal is to try to get this done within a week. So whenever you're watching this, below or going forward, you'll see the link. I think I'm going to have several options depending on what people can afford, and then also to make it accessible too, because once again, we're in times that are not ideal financially. Everybody is experiencing this global shift. So I think one of the options I'm going to have is a group classes. You can come and personally ask your questions. I'm going to have one-on-one options if you don't want to be in the group setting. And then pre-recorded as well. I think this will be the lowest tier, where I go through specifically how to read your 401k statements. I go through specifically what I'm investing in for my brokerage account, for my 401k accounts, for all the accounts I have, and how I was able to grow it over time. So anywho, there will be 3 options available if you're interested. The bugs are eating me, so I'm gonna go inside. Hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and until next time. I know you could do it. All you gotta do is put your mind to it.